Try to remember your first birthday. Go on. Try harder. There's nothing there, is there? Not a face, not a candle, not a single sound. And yet you were there. You were fully awake, fully alive. A person having an experience. So where did it go? You have baby pictures, maybe even a video. Somebody probably told you the story a dozen times. But none of that is a memory. It's a second-hand report of a stranger who happened to share your body. The real answer to where those years went is far stranger than simply, you were too young. Your brain wasn't failing to save those memories. In a way, it was choosing not to. Scientists have a name for this gap. They call it infantile amnesia. Sigmund Freud noticed it over a century ago, long before anyone could scan a brain. He assumed the memories were there, buried, repressed by trauma he couldn't quite prove. He was wrong about the reason, but he was right that something strange was happening in those missing years. Here's the strange part. Babies do remember things, just not the way you think. Psychologist Carolyn Rovi Collier ran a famous set of experiments starting in the 1980s. She tied a ribbon from a baby's ankle to a mobile hanging above the crib. Kick your leg, the mobile spins. Babies as young as 2 or 3 months old figured this out fast. Weeks later, she brought the same babies back. She hung the same mobile, and their little legs started kicking immediately. No mobile had moved yet. They remembered. So the memory system works. It's just not making the kind of memories you'd recognize as yours. There are different kinds of memory living in your head right now. One kind lets you remember how to ride a bike, how to tie your shoes, how kicking makes a mobile spin. That's called procedural memory, and it doesn't need much conscious thought at all. Babies have plenty of it. The other kind is different. It's called episodic memory. It's the memory of you, standing in a specific place at a specific time, having a specific experience that you can consciously replay. That kind requires a much more sophisticated piece of biological hardware. And in a baby, that hardware isn't finished yet. The hardware in question is called the hippocampus. Think of it as the brain's filing clerk. It doesn't store your memories permanently. It grabs the raw experience as it happens and stitches it into a coherent, retrievable file, one you can pull back out years later. In infancy, this filing clerk is still under construction. Neurons in the hippocampus are still multiplying, still relocating, still wiring themselves into their adult positions. A process called neurogenesis is happening at a furious pace. New cells are flooding in and, in a way, overwriting the wiring that older ones were just starting to use. Psychologist Patricia Bauer has spent decades studying exactly when this filing system starts to come online. Her research shows children begin forming memories that last months, sometimes years, starting around age 3 or 4. Before that, the memories are fragile, short-lived, gone within weeks. It isn't that nothing happened in your head at age 2, it's that your head wasn't yet built to keep the receipt. But here's where it gets stranger still. Even after the hippocampus matures, the amnesia doesn't end cleanly. Most adults' earliest memories cluster around age 3.5. Some people remember nothing before 6 or 7, and the fade isn't a hard wall. It's a slope. Memories from age 2 are almost entirely gone. Memories from age 4 are patchy, more like fog than fact. Memories from age 6 start to feel solid, continuous, like an actual thread of you. Why would a person's own mind erase years of their own life? One theory points to language. Before you had words, you couldn't yet organize an experience into a story. And a memory that survives long-term tends to survive as a story, with a beginning, a feeling, a sequence you can narrate to yourself later. A toddler without the words scared or happy or yesterday has no scaffolding to hang the memory on. The experience happens, but it has nowhere to be filed. Another theory points to the self. To remember an event as something that happened to you, you first need a stable sense that there is a you for things to happen to. Psychologists test this with something called the mirror self-recognition test. Put a dot of rouge on a toddler's face, sit them in front of a mirror. Below about 18 months, most babies reach for the mirror, as if the reflection were a different baby entirely. Somewhere around 18 to 24 months, something shifts. They reach for their own face instead. That's roughly when the sense of me clicks into place. And that's roughly when the earliest fragments of adult memory start to appear too. The two seem to arrive together, almost like the mind needed a stable narrator before it could start writing a story worth keeping. Researcher Nora Newcomb has argued the whole system develops gradually rather than switching on overnight, like a photograph slowly resolving out of static rather than a light flicking on, which fits what most people actually experience. Nobody wakes up one day with a clean, cinematic first memory. Instead, there are scattered, half-lit fragments. A kitchen, a dog, a particular blue blanket. No date attached, no order, just pieces. Here's the twist nobody tells you. Some of the memories you do have from very early childhood probably aren't memories at all. Studies on memory formation show that repeatedly hearing a family story, seeing a photograph, watching the same home video, can create something that feels exactly like a memory, but is actually reconstructed from evidence rather than recalled from experience. Your brain can't always tell the difference between something it witnessed and something it was shown enough times to believe it witnessed. So that vivid scene from your third birthday, the one you'd swear you remember in perfect detail, might just be a photograph your mind quietly turned into a movie. This isn't unique to you. It isn't a flaw. Every human who has ever lived has walked through the exact same fog, from the first Homo sapiens child staring up at a fire they'd never recall, to the child born this year in a hospital down the street. It's a universal inheritance, a shared blank spot at the start of every human story ever told. And there's something almost useful about it, if you look at it sideways. A brain that kept every raw, unfiltered sensory blast from infancy, every scream, every hunger, every overwhelming color and sound before you had the tools to make sense of any of it, might be a brain buried under noise it could never properly use. Forgetting those years may not be a bug in the system. It may be the price of admission for becoming a person who can actually use memory well. You lose the tape. You keep the ability to make new, better tapes for the rest of your life. So the next time someone shows you a photo from when you were 2 and says, "Remember this?" you don't have to pretend. You can tell them the truth. That version of you was real, was thinking, was learning, was even quietly building the neural furniture your current mind still sits on. But the story of that specific day is gone. Not because you weren't paying attention, but because the part of your brain that saves stories for later hadn't finished being built yet. You didn't lose your first years. You just weren't equipped yet to keep them. And somewhere in that gap between the baby who kicked a mobile and the person reading this sentence right now, an entirely new filing system quietly came online. One built to hold on to everything that happens next. Try to remember your first birthday. Now you know exactly why you can't.